welcome to Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today, we're very pleased to be joined by Randi Huckaby with Camfil to talk about a very interesting and important aspect of engineering, especially something that our engineers should be aware of when they're designing facilities, both industrial and commercial, really any facility that people work and spend time in. And that's the issue of indoor air quality. Randi, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on. And for those in our audience who are not familiar with Camfil, could you give a description of the company and the work that you do? I know that really that environmental control and dust production, we had you on before talking about specifications on industrial dust collectors, kind of the air quality related issue. But explain what Camfil does and where you are in the market.
Sure. So Camfil as a whole works in cleaning up air. We're widely known for what we do in commercial spaces. So we're talking about hospitals, hotels, schools, things like that. But the division that I work in is specific towards air pollution control. And this is in industrial spaces, specifically manufacturing processes, anything from metal to food, pharmaceutical, plastics, woodworking, those kinds of things. And we specifically make dry dust collection and oil and mist collectors as well.
Fantastic. And, this is something which is very important, indoor air quality, because it's regulated. Of course, it's something that our professionals need to know about. They're trying to design facilities that take into context all of the different variables they have to worry about. Of course, everyone's concerned about indoor air quality, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that the pandemic had a way of refocusing people's attention on exactly the air they're breathing inside confined spaces. So this is a very important thing to talk about. What are some of the you found are some of the common causes for poor indoor air quality?
Well, the first one, you may not believe it, but indoor air quality is already 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air quality. So oftentimes it's just a lack of outdoor air quality or recirculation, or simply not taking care of your HVAC system. That's a big, big cause. And then things such as general wear and tear on your building, cracks or leaks, lots of excessive traffic going in and out of man doors, overhead doors, forklift entrances, things like that. Those are large contributors, much larger than people really think. Obviously, those are important to us at Camfil, but being on the air pollution control side, we really focus on the equipment side, and that is a lot of people also don't focus enough on the dust being generated from their processes. And this is where the really, really harmful dust comes into play and what we focus on protecting people and processes from.
Yeah, really, we're talking about all varieties of material or particulate matter that can be kicked up in the normal course of working.
Absolutely.
And you're right, HVAC, unless it's something that you're specifically focused on, sometimes it's not top of mind. Personally, residentially, I found that out myself when I had someone clean my HVAC, and then we put in a UV system for that purpose because they realized, hey, you got to clean this stuff. You got to be, stay on top of it. And if you're dealing in an industrial situation, a lot of times, it's you need to have the proper controls, of course, to deal with exactly what's being kicked up. With all the different ranges of particulate matter, what are some of the really leading health impacts with poor indoor air quality?
Well, it starts real small. If we start on the small side, there are items that could be confused with a common cold, allergies, or seasonal items. We're talking headaches, congestion, common, like a cough, something that mimics a common cold, eye irritation, skin irritation. If you're in that environment every day, that's something that a lot of people become accustomed to, sadly, and they don't realize that it's attributed to poor eye AQ. Where a visitor who's there for 1 or 2 days, they kind of notice it, and then when they leave, they immediately get better. That's a really small indication. Now, on a more serious side, we've got things like silicosis coming from silica processing. We've got hexchrome, cancer-causing carcinogens out of the metalworking industry that can go into groundwater. Now we're learning about PFAS, or polyfluoroalkylanes, that are the never-ending chemical. They can be made, but they can't be destroyed. So things like that are more harmful, more serious, people are becoming more aware of, and we're learning how to deal with these.
And this is, of course, something that you mentioned PFAS. That's a highly regulated area. What are some of the other regulations that kind of cover issues related to indoor air quality?
Again, it starts really, really broad. So we've got the Clean Air Act of '63 and 1990 that kind of pushed those regulations down and gave us OSHA out of the EPA. And then it goes even further down the line than that. We've got ASHRAE regulations for indoor air. We're talking about offices and things like that. And then we've got things like MSHA for mining, regulating those exposure limits. We've got NIOSH and ISPE for pharmaceutical world, the FDA for Food and Drug Administration, kind of specific industries in those larger markets where they've known to have a lot of issues back in the day, but they're becoming more and more prevalent. And the restrictions are starting to get tighter and tighter, and people are actually starting to regulate them a little bit. So I expect to see this more and more as we research and the industry starts finding more cause to some of these symptoms that we've seen over the years.
Yeah, and it seems as though the medical field is kind of, every year they're kind of discovering more causes and links to environmental factors when it comes to quality of health and different aspects of upper respiratory system, of conditions, things that are more environmental than they are, let's say, caused by something biological. And states are taking an active role in regulating the quality of air, both outdoor and indoor. That, of course, means that our industry has to respond, that when they're designing large, or really any size industrial or commercial facilities, that this has to be top of mind. How does Camfil kind of come in and help the engineering firms kind of figure out the specifications for even looking at issues related to indoor air quality?
There's a couple different ways. First is, we work with the engineering firm to determine what the dust is, how it could be best handled. So is it going to be an oil or mist collector? Is it going to be a dry cartridge collector like we make? Or is it outside the temperature limits? Maybe a bag house or some pre-separation is needed. So really what the dust is, how small and fine the particulates might be, and what kind of technology would work best. And then really working backwards to what the emissions or regulations are in that industry, whether it's dictated by that state, that company, could be their insurance provider or some other regulatory agency. So between those regulations and the actual dust that's being processed, Camfil will work to determine the equipment and then the media or filtration efficiency needed to get to that emissions level that they're wanting.
That kind of sets you apart, right? Because it's not just the design and construction of these filtration systems. It's really going from the start, working with those engineers in determining what needs to be built, exactly, what kind of particulate matter that you're dealing with, and really understanding from site selection all the way into the design phase what needs to happen, right?
Absolutely. even within dry dust collection itself, there's so many technologies out there. There's vertical cartridges, which is what we specialize in. There's horizontal. Knowing there's something called air to cloth ratio that you need to take into consideration to make sure that you're evacuating the appropriate amount of particulate. You don't want to take too much because you could affect the quality of the product that's being made, but you got to take enough so that all the hazards are removed from the process. So we work from the very beginning with the engineering firm to know exactly how much we're evacuating and what we're evacuating from the space.
Absolutely, and that's really critical to your point. Like, there is going to the idea of reaching zero particulate matter or zero, dust or what have you is probably impossible because it depends on exactly what's being done in this facility. If you lower too much, to your point, it could actually lower the quality or disrupt the actual manufacture of what they're trying to actually accomplish. So it's really finding that line where you're preserving employee and the health of people surrounding the facility, and also making sure that you can actually get done what that facility is intended to do. For engineers who really don't have a lot of experience or know all the ins and outs of let's say the chemistry side or really a lot of the biological side of air quality, how do you work with them to kind of, I guess, bridge that gap? I mean, what kind of expertise, what kind of backgrounds do your experts bring to a project to help them define the specifications for whatever equipment they need to have?
Well, we've been in the industry for about 30 years now with our current product, our standard product. And so we have a lot of ways we can look back on how if systems were applied to maybe a similar type process or similar type dust. So we have a lot of those existing kind of standards that we can go by. And that's one method. Another method is we have an internal network of Salesforce reps, dealers who all over the world. It's not just in the Americas, it's all over the world, who are working with some of these large companies right from the ground up in their R&D facilities. So sometimes we have to focus and go all the way back to the original manufacturer and see what best practices we can apply there as well. But we're also willing to do test sites, some beta sites with our customers if they're unsure. A lot of these OEMs are unsure of how their process is going to finish at the end of the day. So we'll work with them, supply some test equipment, and we can verify particulate. We can monitor it throughout. We can see how long the system will last, compare it to some in-house standards, some ASHRAE standards that we test to every day, every week, and really see what best practice should be used moving forward as the process develops. So it's kind of a combination of best practices that we've known forever, and then we can apply any new testing technology to a customer site that we can deploy as needed throughout and grow with the customer.
That's really good to know, because it really is that full service approach to make sure that any plan that's put in place can actually at the start really determine what needs to be addressed and really how to go about that with holding to those regulatory standards is critically important. Yeah, one question I have is related to kind of the marketplace, because do you see, in your experience, is it I imagine not just new construction or new facilities being designed, but a good amount of retrofitting on existing facilities to meet current standards. How do you see that market breakdown between retrofitting and just brand new, on spec design of filtration systems?
Obviously, there's been a lot of growth in the new construction in the last couple of administrations in the U.S., especially. So North America has seen a lot of new construction growth recently. The EV battery world is actually the hottest growing industry here in North America, and that's full of a lot of unknowns. that technology kind of differs from one end of the spectrum to the other. And so we've got a lot of different things going on in that new construction. But you kind of hit it on the head that a lot of retrofitting needs to happen. A lot of these regulations are new, and people were unprepared when they set up their manufacturing facilities 10, 15, 20 years ago. The good news is a lot of the air pollution control equipment can still be utilized and either added onto, upgraded. A lot of them are modular, and you can add to the system size as needed, or you can make the systems work together. So I would say right now we're about on our equipment side, we're about 30% new construction and probably 40% retrofitting to the market. And then we've got a little bit what I would call in between add-ons, replacing systems, not just adding to them or upgrading them. So there's a little bit of the in between there in the R&D world as well.
Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the idea of, really involving, experts from Camfil at the start, because you also have to look at expansion and scale over time, so that the facility, you might have a system that's designed for only, so much production, but if you expand production at a facility, that's going to have to also augment over time. So building for scale is also important. So this is really good information. I mean, for our member firms that are in the process right now of dealing with indoor air quality issues, where should they go to visit Camfil, and how should they navigate to the right person to start talking to?
Great websites. Camfil.com is our main website. I highly encourage anybody to go there. It's really easy to navigate to our air pollution control section on that page. So it'll just say Camfil APC division on one of them, and that will get you right to where you need to go. We offer the website in several different languages as we're a global company. So it's readily available everywhere you need to go. If you're a company simply looking for filters or retrofitting, the collectors you have, we have an aftermarket department that also has a link on that website as well. But there is a chat bot on most of those, and they'll take you right where you need to go.
Fantastic. I know it's kind of a quick kind of dip into a very deep pond here when you talk about these indoor air quality issues, but it's a good start to the conversation. And Randy, I want to thank you again for being part of the program. Is there anything that we didn't touch upon that you want to make sure that our audience knows before we wrap up?
No, I think one thing is just that it's really not as difficult as it seems if you contact the right people. Obviously, air pollution control is easier if you start at the very beginning of your processes, but we know that's not how it typically works, as we're kind of after the scenes, after the product is made, how can we protect the people and the process? And that's what we're here for. So any step along the way, don't hesitate to contact Camfil or one of our representatives, because we can help.
Fantastic. Well, Randi Huckaby, Product Manager at Camfil, thank you again for being part of the program today. Really look forward to having you on again.
Yes, I do too. Thank you.
Fantastic. And again, this has been Engineering Influence Podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we'll see you next time.